Hello everyone, it's me Clayton. I just finished watching episode 5 of Moon Knight. This is where we finally get into Marc Spector's backstory, and it is a doozy. It explains everything, really, about what Marc's home situation was like, what ultimately happened to Marc's family, what ultimately led to Steven being created, what led to Marc becoming the Moon Knight. It's actually kind of impressive that they stuck all this into just 50 minutes. But let's get to the story, shall we? This, Marc and Stephen find Tallaret, the Egyptian goddess of fertility and childbirth, as she happens to send our two boys over to the underworld. Apparently, she has to weigh their hearts on the scales of justice. If they aren't balanced, that means they have to go into the sands of the Duat, meaning that their bodies are going to be frozen in sand for all eternity. So Marc and Steven have to go through each other's pasts to figure out what they're missing in order to get the scales of justice balanced. Only as it turns out, Steven isn't really his own person. He's basically just a separate personality of Marc. That's what I was talking about when it comes to the show dealing with dissociative identity disorder. So therefore, we pretty much just see everything that Marc did. Him becoming a mercenary, him killing a lot of people, and we also see Marc's home situation, where it turns out his brother ended up drowning and his mother blamed Marc for everything that happened. Marc used Stephen Grant as basically a coping mechanism to deal with her abuse, and decided to leave after Marc's father didn't do anything to prevent his mother from constantly messing with him. Especially since Marc was just a kid, I don't blame him for what happened. It's just a tragedy that happened, and it's clear that Marc's mom is, well, a terrible parent for pushing all the blame onto one kid. It naturally scarred Marc for life, and you really do sympathize with him. Now a lot of his gruffer demeanor makes a lot more sense. And you can also see how he'd have so much guilt after the Tomb expedition for why he'd ultimately fall for the manipulations of Khonshu. All these characters have motivations and have actions that make sense within the context of the story, and it's actually kind of heartbreaking to see what happens to Marc and Steve in later in the episode. But, of course, there's still some decent humor throughout that actually doesn't mess with the tone, such as Dr. Harrow's various attempts to talk to Stephen and Marc during their therapy sessions, and Tallaret's also pretty darn funny, though if I had a dollar for every talking hippo in an animated form, I'd have $2, which isn't a lot, but it's kind of weird it's happened twice. Her and Gloria from Madagascar. But anyways, considering that Tallaret's actually based on an actual Egyptian deity, much like all the ones in this series, I'll buy it. And I think the actress who played her did a really good job mixing humor with some legitimate pathos with her character. But, as Marc hasn't made it to the gates of Osiris, we've gone through 5 episodes and we only have 1 left. I'm guessing it's going to be longer than the previous ones, but at the same time, it's going to be kind of hard to let the series go. Initially, I believe this one was better off suited as a movie, but now seeing everything that they had to build up for Marc's character, I can see why they decided to turn it into a Disney Plus series. And now that we've reached the climax, it's time for the Moon Knight to take on Harrow and to make sure Amit doesn't rise. But will he succeed? We'll see next week. See you then.